innovation, creating future services with and for the public. So we've heard a lot already this afternoon about the challenges that are facing people. And particularly one of the areas that I'm most closely associated with is around the crisis in ageing. So I can't get the guy's attention, sorry, crisis in ageing. And particularly around, when we think about this, we think about that people are living longer, people are living with multiple conditions, and also there's not as much money in the system. And so people talk about a time bomb that's waiting to go off. And what we wanted to do was to think about how could we co-design something that would completely flip that problem on its head, work with people who are experiencing ageing and see ageing coming towards them on the horizon, and think, how can we make this something that people are going to look forward to? You know, that is quite a strong thing to flip, not this time bomb crisis, but something that people can look forward to, so that people can be as independent as possible for as long as possible. So we worked with 250 older people in Southwark, and we talked to them about what would this look like, what would it be like to be able to look forward to a flourishing older age. And that's what I want to talk to you about this afternoon, to talk through our experience of making this happen. Okay, so first of all, a little bit about Participle and who we are. So Participle are trying to carve out a space at the moment where we think about innovation, but we also think how we can scale it, how it can be repeated over a number of sites and that can get maximum impact. So we have a lot of large national organisations, I've worked with some of them as we've just heard, where they've kind of cracked how to do scale. But often it's quite difficult to innovate quickly and make the changes that might need to happen associated with that. And then we also have organisations that are often small and niche, that specialise in kind of experimenting, finding new ways to do things, but don't have the ways and means to grow and to make these things happen on a larger scale, whether it's across London, whether it's nationally. So what we're interested in is bringing those two things together, how we can have the innovation and how we can scale it. And this is the space that we occupy. And there's certain principles that underpin all our work. One of them is around deep participation, the phrase that I think I heard this afternoon about walking in people's shoes who experience the problem. So we absolutely go for deep participation in everything that we do, as well as seeing how social connections, networks, and relationships can unlock resources and be the key to the solution. Very much what we talk about is what people can do for themselves and people's capabilities and how you can unlock all of that, rather than what people can't do and getting very focused on that aspect of things. Underpinning all of this is an imaginative use of technology and seeing how, you know, you've talked about how much it costs for someone to walk into 222 rather than to use the internet and do things over the web, and that's very much our approach, how we can use technology. So what I'd like to do next is to just run through the projects that we currently work on before focusing on the Circle story. So currently we have the Circle, which is around ageing. We also work on a project that's called Life, which is around, as the government would call it, families in chaotic crisis or continuing crisis. But I know in Islington you talk about stronger families, which is a very participle way of thinking about things, like how you can turn things around and look for the positives. And both of those are the ones that I work most closely on and are in the phase of scaling the innovation. Employability, again, we've heard this afternoon how this is a major problem for Islington, as well as more broadly. And so we have a project around employability, which isn't about how you get someone a job, but how do you prepare someone for a lifetime of working, and how do you get the social connections and the relationships around that person to prepare them for a lifetime of working. And then social health, which is our newest area, which is about working with people living with long-term conditions, and how we can focus on wellness and how people can do the best for themselves in order to maximize their health. So this is the kind of theory behind it all. And so we have this design process that we call the double diamond approach. So we've heard today a call from yourselves to think of ideas, sparks of ideas that could be innovation for Islington. So that would be this discovery part of the design process, where there's a kind of call to go out wide and for people to think of ideas, people to think of anything that we think might make a difference. And then you pull those ideas back in, so you get the first point of the diamond, and you start to sift them and think which are the ones that we might be able to work with. And then you push those ones back out again to kind of experiment, to kind of see how do they stand up, what do we need to do to make them work. So I think it sounds like that's the phase that you're in, that kind of idea discovery, idea generation. With our social health, that's where we are, and we're just pulling the ideas back in, getting ready to work our way through to push them back out. And in our employability one, we're in the prototyping phase. So we're really working quick and hard. We do it in 3-month sprints, where we kind of, let's test something, get it out there quick, let's fail quick, let's learn quick, bring it back in. So that's the prototyping phase. And then where we are with our sustainable enterprises is where we think, right, we understand the model now, we understand what works, we understand the business case that underlines it, and now let's try to grow it. Let's understand what it means to grow this and scale. So that's the kind of, the theory behind the story. Okay, so what we're now going to talk about is how Circle came about and what was our starting point. So this map is actually quite out of date now, but what it indicates is around social care and how social care, adult social care, is rationed. So the red is where it's kind of critical care only, going down the colours to, broader needs. We all know this map will have changed radically. Absolutely. In the last 5 years, it will be different in kind. And we've heard it's going to be different again. So we know it's getting harder and harder out there. So this is what we were hearing, this time bomb waiting to go off. But also, we know that relatively speaking, older people in this country do have access to resources. And, we kind of call it the jam jar economy. People are saving for that rainy day, or people have, access to benefits, and that we need to understand how people can use their resources, both financially as well as personally, to make the best of their current situation. So we were kind of juggling with these two things. So we were able to, we were able to bring together a unique partnership of Participle, central government, local council in Southwark, which is where we are based, as well as Sky, to come together and to think about working with these 250 older people to say, what would it look like? If this is the problem and we want to come up with a new solution, what would that solution look like? And we worked with people aged 55 to 97. So the way that we work is we spend time in people's lives. Again, the phrase that you used this afternoon, we walk in their shoes. We absolutely do that. So we go to the shops with them, see what they spend their money on, how they spend their leisure time, what their struggles are, who their networks are, who their family and friendship networks are. So really to get under the skin of what it's really like walking in people's shoes in this situation. And then we do something that's called a deep dive. So the next one is a deep dive. So we spend a lot of time with someone who we think epitomizes what it is we're trying to understand. So meet Mick. So Mick was in his mid-50s. He was an ex-coach driver. He lived on his own. He had diabetes, and he said his doctor was worried about him. But he also said, I'm fine. You don't need to worry about me. I'm fine. So we said, you know, he said, I'll look after myself and, you know, you don't need to worry. So we said to Mick, talk us through how you look after yourself, show us how you do that. So obviously because of his diabetes, and he said his doctor was worried for him, we said we want to understand how you eat and how you look after yourself that way. So we asked Mick to take a photograph every day. Yeah, some of you might recognise this. You think, oh yeah, I'm having that tonight. So we asked Mick to take a photograph every day of what he ate, which constituted him eating healthily. And this was the photograph. So it's all very orange. And what we understood was what Mick meant by eating healthily was that he warmed something up. So he had something hot every evening. So from this kind of deep dive and really understanding what it's like, we then try to look for insights. What is this telling us that we can then take as a broader theme? So the first insight that we came to was that some people and people like Mick were skipping what's called the third age. So they're going straight from the period of work and learning straight to a period of ill health and declining health and dependency. So that space in the middle where we should be able to kind of think about leisure, you know, family are off our hands, what do we want to do for ourselves? Now it's a bit of time for myself, what are the things I've always wanted to explore, maybe to change direction, completely going. And Mick said this to us, what he was looking forward to was his pension kicking in. You know, this guy's in his 50s and that's what he was looking forward to. So for us, there was this insight about people skipping the third age and moving straight to the period of declining health, dependency, frailty, a big issue for the system. So what we were able to do then was think about what else are we learning from working with these 250 people. And another key insight was that people's needs are episodic. Now we know from the system you have to say how bad you are to get that service, and particularly when you're talking about critical care, and that's the expanding area. So you have to say, this is how bad I am, I'm like this all the time, because what you're worried about is if you say that you have good days and bad days, that actually you're going to get the service taken away from you. So we kind of incentivize people to kind of stick at a higher level. And that people want to be able to say, well, I don't need it all the time, but I need to mix it up, and I need to be able to have a system that's flexible enough to be able to deal with that. So we've got our deep insights, our deep dive, and then we can think about how can we generalize this and get more broader insights. So then what we try to do is to think about the learning. So we start to apply all of this and think, what is this telling us? So in relation to our work with the 250 older people, we started to plot them, and we call it a segmentation exercise. This was our earliest segmentation exercise. So we start to plot them, and we think about need, high need and low need, and then this concept of agency, which basically we meant by people's motivation to do something. So where were they on this scale? And we'll come back to this later. And the other thing that we looked at in terms of our learning, and this was a kind of key breakthrough moment for us, that it's not just about the individual who's getting older, but it's about who are the family members around them. I live in Islington. I've lived in Islington over 10 years, but you can tell I am not born and bred here, okay? My parents live 250 miles away. They're getting older. They're in that fragile state now. They're kind of fragile elderly. I need to be able to help them. My two sisters still live in Manchester. We won't go there. My two sisters still live in Manchester, but they full-time jobs, they've got kids, one of them's husband's disabled. They might live 20 minutes away in the car, but they haven't got the time to be able to be my parents' carers. So this whole idea that families want to be able to help from a distance, and that whatever we come up with needs to allow that to happen. So all of this, we begin to think, well, what is this now telling us? What's our kind of proposition? So we start to think about, could we actually invert this idea? Any social care person in the room will understand this, inverting Maslow's hierarchy of need. And basically, you talk about early intervention and prevention. So it's the idea of thinking that if we put in the support early, if we create the social networks and kickstart the social networks around people and put in the practical help that you can dip in and dip out of in that episodic way, actually, do you stop people needing that higher critical care later on? So it is a theory around early intervention and prevention. So that was kind of all of our sort of starting point. All of this is what we're beginning to kind of pull together and think about. So we go back to thinking about co-design, and we think, right, so how are we going to make this happen? So we go back to that group of people and we start to experiment. We start to say, would it look like this? Would it look like that? What happens if we work with you in this way? What happens if we work with you in a different way? And this is about testing out ideas. And I think I used the phrase just a moment ago, it's about doing things quickly and learning fast. If it's rubbish, you stop doing it straight away. It's not setting up big, complicated, projects that, will report in 2 years' time and tell you whether it's working or not. So, for example, one of the things we wondered was, is this about people having life type coaches, someone alongside them to help them get motivated? And it was a rubbish idea. People within a week told us that's not what they wanted. It was rubbish. So it's like, right, we stop doing it that quickly. We try it, it's an idea, it hasn't worked, we stop it. People like Ronald, we go around to do practical support, help him clean his freezer out, and he tells us, but actually I'm also struggling with my computer, and I think we fix his computer, and then we say, but you know what, there's loads more you could be doing with that. So we begin to understand that you can build on the initial contact and create a new kind of sense of relationship around people. As well as working on this and testing all the ideas, at this point we're also working out the business case. What are the potential savings? What are the outcomes? How can this be a sustainable offer? But today's not the day to go into that. Anyone wants to hear about it, I'm very happy to come back, but today's not the day. So what was the proposition we came up with? What all of this work, all of our double diamond, what did we come up with? So it was to come up with a membership organisation that was about maximising the benefits of this third age. And what we came up with, working with all of these people, was that what they told us, to have a flourishing third age, they wanted to stay sorted. And staying sorted meant practical help to stay on top of things around the home, so that it was light touch that you could dip in and dip out of. It could be anything from, someone that last week was asking for, they couldn't change their light bulbs anymore. They'd spent a week, kind of rummaging around in the dark because they couldn't change their light bulbs. You just think it's an accident waiting to happen. Light touch support. Being socially connected. This is absolutely key for us, is that what this is about shared interests and similar routines. It's not about grouping people that you're the over 80s club, or grouping people that you're the the Algerian women's group. We talked about the Algerian community earlier. It's not grouping people on those traditional demographics. It's about grouping people based on them identifying that they've got something in common. And this whole idea that you can live life with a purpose, that you, as well as to take, you can give something back. And this was the beginnings of Circle. So Southwark Circle, which celebrated its 3rd birthday in the summer, this is the kind of the front of its website page. And what you get with Southwark Circle is that members can help each other, whether it's across practical, social, health, learning. So it can be anything on this screen, anything. I think the thing that's interesting is learning to send a text. We had a lot of interest from people around how to use technology. We're probably familiar with it ourselves. We're dying to get parents or grandparents or aunts and uncles the mobile and how to send a text. And, if you need someone in emergency, press that button and it will come straight through to me. And Skype, we get a lot of interest about how, if you live far away, you can keep in touch through Skype. So it's not just the obvious things like I need to keep on top of my garden, but it's about how to keep people in touch with the technological changes that are happening and what makes it easier to stay in touch with people close to you by using technology in this way. So, so then all of this is about members being each other's solution, where we talk about how you can tap into the resources that exist around people. It's about creating relationships, about creating connections, so that people are doing things for each other. And this is the basic kind of membership offer. So in all of this, these are real people, these are real members. And then, so this is just all of these examples. I could go into so much detail and give, a real kind of strong flavour, and I haven't got the time, so it's just quickly to introduce 3 more people. So Florence was classed as someone who couldn't get out on her own, and she would need community transport. We all know how difficult that can be. You might have anything up to an hour as a window when it will get to you, depending on what else is happening before that. Florence only wanted to go up the road to the shops to, get her sweets and get a paper. So what we were able to do was to link Florence with someone, this is a hairdresser who works in those same shops, and once a week she'd come down and they'd go up together at lunchtime. What she needed, go back again. Really easy, creating the connection. Olive, in the pink cardigan, Olive had quite a high reablement package, and she was classed as being housebound. So, and what we do, innovation is often about disrupting the system. It's about kind of making that change and disrupting the system. So by giving Olive the 0800 number, which she could ring to access the circle, she was able to understand what else was going on, what were the social things that were going on, who else might have been doing them who lived locally to her. So Olive decides she wants to go to some of these things, and she gets herself organised to get there. So she begins to change, and that's also what we're interested in, behaviour change. And then Janet was waiting for a special chair that would help her get out of it and support her when she was sitting in it. But the system, that was going to take a few months for it to come through, and her choice was very narrow about what she'd be able to get. So what we were able to do was to go online with Janet, find exactly the chair that she wanted in the colour that she wanted and wherever, and we were able to get a neighbourhood helper to link up with Janet, who's the person who offers the practical support, and they went out and got the chair and she bought it herself. So they're just very simple ways to show how people then start to do things for themselves. And that's where we can see, going back to the segmentation map, where the need is still broadly similar, but the agency and the motivation begins to change. And with that, the need begins to shift as well, that people begin to be able to do things for themselves. And this is something that we're absolutely interested in. All of this is how you create behaviour change. So today, we think that what we've achieved is thousands of hours of social activity, thousands of hours of this light touch practical support, as well as many different relationships with different local authorities. We've been able to collaborate with existing schemes and existing providers. Our frame is very much around early intervention and prevention, where people are providing care at a much higher stage. We will work together to see what we can do together. And we think we've mastered absolutely what it is to create a light touch community feel organisation. We think we understand what it is to create a culture where people feel like they own the organisation and it genuinely feels as a member-led organisation, and that a service that builds on what people can do, on their capabilities, as well as meet some of those needs. So we think it genuinely is about behaviour change, and that we can help people generate that sense of motivation, as well as do things for themselves. And I think once you create that membership base, once you've created that platform, then that offers an opportunity for local authorities to continue to innovate in exactly the way that we've been talking about, to continue to innovate and do things differently depending on their own experience. So, um, so this is how we've done it. In one of the films we saw about personal budgets, and definitely in the circle environment, personal budgets are being used as a way of buying the circle membership, and maybe first introduction to what that means, so that then people can experience what it's like to be part of the circle, experience what it offers both socially as well as practically, and begin to think about how that can help them. The other so we've done this luncheon clubs in Southwark. The luncheon clubs were closing. They wanted to experiment about a different way of doing that. We created a dine out scheme. We linked with local businesses in the area. It could be anything from Al's Cafe to one of the nice little independent Italians, through to the chip shop, through to, you know, quite a smart restaurant. Getting discounts up to 25% off. And then people would start to use the local cafe, and that's where they would meet for their lunch with people that they wanted to meet with. That's been really successful, and we're now scaling that in other London boroughs. Home ward was an area where Southwark were having difficulties with people in hospital needing to come home, needing a key safe fitted so that the support could come in. Their current provider was taking anything up to a week. Obviously no good in that sort of situation. They did exactly the right thing. They said, we've invested in you, we've got the platform, can you do it differently? Because of our network of neighbourhood helpers who are hyper local, we were able to respond to calls within 24 hours if that's what was required. We were able to use a technological platform which allowed social care staff to log straight into our system and book the call. People did not believe it was that simple. They were like, who signs it off? How does this go through? Where do I get my manager? It was like, no, all that's been dealt with. You literally log the call and we will deal with it. Helpers can see the same, and it all happens as if by magic. It really was that simple. Then what we're able to do is to start to build the support around that person. We're able to kind of notice that the lino that they tripped up in the first place is still up. We're able to notice that the garden's out of control given the weather that we've had. We're able to notice that actually they miss meeting their friends at the end of the street or whatever, and that we're able to build both the practical and social support around that person. And we're also working with other local authorities around experimenting around reablement packages. So all of that means that we're able to now go from the innovation to understanding how the project works to thinking about how can it scale. So we're just at the space now of thinking about what would a circle look like across London. And so what we've been able to do is to bring our two circles together, which are Southwark and Hammersmith and Fulham. And we've just got our most recent one about to launch in Havering, and we're in talks with other London boroughs. And we will create this hub and spoke approach. In Central Circle, behind the scenes, we'll do all the things you would expect us to do around membership services, helper coordination, marketing and comms. In a local hub, we will work across a smaller area in terms of local partnerships, event planning, but then it will always feel hyper local. It will always feel like it's just your circle. And the 0800 number would be just for you. And have a local calendar of events, and the helpers will be someone from your borough. So it will always feel like you're part of the community, and everything back office will happen very lean. All of this is not about building big infrastructure. It's not about having buildings and cars and, you know, fleets of vans with circle on the side. In the example of Dine Out, where we use the local eateries, all of this is about seeing what happens out there and using what's out there. So as we've been hearing all afternoon, the current way of doing things, it's over. We need to be thinking about new ways to respond to the current challenges that we're all experiencing. And we believe that with Participle, we are working on new market fundamentals. It's about being relationship based. It's about looking at what people can do, what capabilities people can do. It's about looking for multiple opportunities for innovation. And it's about creating a model that can work locally but can also then be scaled. We're absolutely about starting early, and that's why the circle starts at 50. So from 50, yeah, everyone, I'm nearly there. It's 50 plus, so that you start to create those networks around you, highly preventative, early intervention, so that people can make the most of their third age and reduce the need for that critical health dependency later on. So now here's just a short snapshot about the circle, and that's
becoming a member.
finished.
I want to become a member of Southwark Circle because I thought it was a really brilliant scheme, and I needed some help with working a DVD, and I wanted some pictures hung. And I also wanted to share my skills with other people in the community and get to know other people in the community. So I thought it was a fantastic idea. Yeah.
Members, like Viv, can get help with life's practical tasks from vetted people called neighbourhood helpers. Members also share their interests with other members. When Eric's video player stopped working, he called Southwark Circle to get it sorted out. Like all members, you can call anytime to book a visit from a neighbourhood helper. Eric was pleased to hear that a helper could pop round the following day.
Yeah, well, my television blew up one night, and I thought, well, that's going to cost me a bomb, that is. And then I thought about it a bit longer, and I thought, well, I'll ring that group called Southwark Circle. And they came round one afternoon, and within 2 hours, they'd fixed it. Saved me a lot of money. Bingo.
Everyone has different skills to offer, so our helpers can lend a hand with all kinds of tasks, from DIY projects and gardening, to cleaning jobs, or learning something new. When a job needs a professional, like plumbing, we introduce members to tradespeople who've been recommended by a fellow member. Members also get together to do things and enjoy each other's company.
When I went to the National Gallery, I met Becky and Holly, but go to the Southwark Circle. That was good for me. We were so happy together, looking at the painting, and we were telling each other what to take home, which one we're going to take home. Obviously, we couldn't take them, but it was just fun going around the gallery.
Viv, Eric and Annie have each chosen a membership that's right for them. One number to call, answered by a real person, and a great way to get neighbourly, practical help and meet new people. That's Southwark Circle.
Thank you.
Wow. It's a good job I'm only 39. Okay. Thank you, Kath. That was fascinating.